2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, our Wednesday night get-together, brought to you by the team behind In Pit Lane every week, Channel 31 at 9:30 Thursday night. Tomorrow night on the program, a big night for classic car enthusiasts. We've got not only a preview of the big Winton Historic coming up this weekend with our special guests Jacob and Abby Wingett, but we've also going to take you out to the launch of a brand new event that will basically replace Motorclassica in Victoria. It's called Motors and Masterpieces, a huge event that's happening out at the Melbourne Showgrounds in late November, on the last weekend of November, actually. Unfortunately, the same weekend as Island Magic, so there's another calendar clash there, which is a bit unfortunate. But there's really not a lot we can do about that. To that extent, but anyway, it'll be a great event, and you'll find out more about that tomorrow night on the program. Also, remember on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, you can see it on demand. Also, got some great music tomorrow night too. Amina, who joined us originally from Belgium, from Antwerp. She joined us last night along with her partner Nick, who did some playing of guitar and a bit of harmony and that sort of thing. So that's tomorrow night on In Pit Lane, 9:30 on Channel 31 Melbourne. And I was going to say we've got a full contingent in, but it looks like we've lost Mark Jones all of a sudden. But let's see who has survived the technical issues at the moment. Oh, there he is. He is back. Let's welcome everybody to the program. We got Pete Johnson, we got Mark Jones, we've got Craig Doc Gladigo, and welcome everybody to the program. Now I have to point out I'm even sort of more zonked out than usual. I've spent all day since about 8 o'clock this morning. I spent all day in and out of various tubes and getting things injected into me, and I'm a bit out of it at the moment, so so there's no news tickers or anything like that going underneath because I basically didn't have time. But I will say to Phil, g'day Phil. Phil will understand this. One of my problems of getting in and out of one of the bloody tubes was one of my several hernias decided to get strangulated as I was climbing into the bloody thing, and it hurt like hell, and that sort of delayed everything. So that sort of stuffed me up. G'day to Box. They're also saying hello to Mad Cow Mark. There he is. Mad Cow Mark is joining us once again as well. And also we've got Paul Vanderacker as well, saying hello to us as well. So we've got a few of the regulars in on the program. As I said, I haven't had much time or any time to prepare anything. But let's talk about what happened on the weekend. Let's start with Formula One. And Pete, we'll start with you. It turned into a much better race than we all expected it to be. I mean, I sort of wandered away to do some other things and have a look at a few other things that, about 3/4 of the way through the race, and thought, oh, here we go. This is just another. And then suddenly I heard the man, the I'm not James Allen person who was doing the commentary, sort of getting very excited. And I wandered out, and suddenly it was all on with Lando and Lando chasing him down. I mean, Lando said that if he had one more lap, that he would have, he would have got by him. I'm not sure that Max would agree with that, but it would have been great fun to watch. But what did you think of it all?
It was a good race. Max was actually having trouble charging the battery, so he might have, Lando might have got him. But yeah, it was, the last two races have been good. I think Miami, yes, Max did have damage because they said after the race, Christian Horner said after the race that in Miami they noticed a bit was missing off the car after he hit the bollard. So I think he did suffer from damage there, but I'm not sure what the story was in Imola. But yeah, it was a good race.
The interesting thing is it definitely shows as we go into Monaco this weekend. I mean, and Red Bull have sort of said, they've played it down. They've said, oh, Monaco's certainly not our best track. Whereas McLaren said, I think we'll do pretty well at Monaco, even before the latest upgrades. It's showing that McLaren are definitely they've now joined Ferrari, and it's basically in terms of anybody who is capable of beating Red Bull. It's certainly McLaren are showing that they're up there now, and it's going to be a real fight between Ferrari and McLaren for the rest of the year. They've sort of upended Aston Martin as being the third thing, and Oscar Piastri, of course, in qualifying did a fabulous job. So I think Paul said, Norris might according, but getting past him is another thing. That's what I think. Max is very good at making that car very wide.
Well, he did a few times when it was a bit closer. He did a few times, but just on the Piastri and qualifying, I think sure, the driver should maybe get a sanction, but I think the team should as well, because they really didn't give enough time for him. When they warned him that Magnussen was there, there wasn't enough time for him to do anything about it.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it is an oversight of you would think that, as they're releasing him, as they're releasing Oscar out, that they'd say, just be aware as you come out that, you've got drivers behind on fast laps, and Magnussen's coming through. So he might have taken a bit more care. So, but it wasn't a deliberate thing. So it was a pretty rough penalty. Be interesting to see how Oscar in particular goes at Monaco, because he's certainly showing now that he's the level of. He's at a good level with Lando. I mean, it's not like there's Lando's in a class of his own, and Oscar's just filling up the space there. They're very they're very close together. But as Mark is saying, Lando always seems to drive away from Oscar. No points in qualifying. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that it would have been interesting if he'd have started in second position. I think it would have been very interesting. I think it would have been an interesting.
You guys getting some bad audio there?
Yes, I'm not sure what that's coming. I don't know what's happening there. I'll see. Is that coming through at your end, Mark?
I'm fine. I've got no issues that I can tell.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, it seems to be coming. Yes, it's like there's a scraping or. I think it is coming through. Hang on a second. I'll just mute Mark's. Yeah, I'm not sure that it is. Mark. I can still sort of hear it in the background, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
No, I think it is Mark's. Now you muted it, it went dead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's not doing anything, so I'm not sure he has to say there's mice in the. John saying sounds like a bungee case. You're not keeping wildlife.
Well, it is a brand new headset, but
maybe microphone. Microphone's a bit maybe close to you, or
maybe.
That is one of the problems with those microphones is that they if you can move it sort of out of just perhaps either up or down so it's out of your breath there.
Sorry about that.
That's clearer. Yep, that's clearer.
My humblest
anyway.
Apologies, good sirs.
So we'll get used to it. I mean, new technology, you're always teasing problems. But yeah, I mean, coming up this weekend, of course, is Monaco, and we've seen McLaren have released a tribute livery to Ayrton Senna, which Oscar's going to run on the weekend. Looks really, based on his helmets, it's really very interesting that they've done this, and it's great that the sponsors have also allowed them to do it as well. So that's what there it is there. It looks there alongside one of the GT4 cars. So anyway, that's what it looked like, paying tribute to Ayrton Senna, of course, like a legend of Monaco. So that's coming up this weekend. And wouldn't it be great to see? Wouldn't it be fabulous to see Oscar take that to victory in the Monaco Grand Prix and become?
Wouldn't it just?
Yeah,
Did any of you catch up with Oscar's interview after the race? I happen to have a. Did you catch it, Pete?
No.
There was a little bit of an interview that went for about 5-10 minutes with him. He made some interesting comments himself. He played down and was humble about it, of course, which is fantastic. But he said that they're all in the same boat, of course, as you know. With the tyres, he said, especially he referenced Charles and himself. He said when we chase a car, the tyre would feel fantastic and you feel like you had the grip and be able to get up to the next position, like, for example, whoever you want to take on. But when you got there, you just the tyre would sort of drop off a bit. I mean, it happens all the time on a regular basis, but he said it was a bit more prevalent on the weekend just gone. He said you had that huge amount of confidence catching that person, and then it almost drop off a cliff when you actually get to the person, you go and make the move. So, and there was, so he played it down a little bit. They said, oh yeah, what if he didn't get his place penalty and that sort of stuff, but he was really happy with the upgrades and having the car the same as Lando now and being competitive and all that jazz. So yeah, I'd recommend catching up with that interview for Oscar after the race. It was you get a little bit more enlightenment than you usually get from the overview of the mainstream media.
We've also had some news coming out. I haven't had time to catch up with any of it, but Pete, you were saying there's been a big move in Formula One behind the scenes, rank with Pat Simmons. Tell us about that.
It's Pat Fry has Pat Simmons.
Fry,
sorry, yeah, Pat
Simmons.
Simmons. No, you're right. Pat Simmons has left the technical director position at Formula One. So I wonder. I don't know. I don't think so. But I wonder if one Newey might become technical director of Formula One.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. He'd know where the bodies were hidden.
Yeah, because
particularly with one team.
That would mean that he would spend less time traveling around and probably even have to spend less time in an office. But then I thought about it and thought maybe not, because even though he says he finds these latest, not the ones coming in 2026, but these latest ones he found very restrictive. I think he likes the challenge of finding loopholes in the rules and designing a car around that. So, yeah, but I wonder.
Yeah, that's it. So Pat Simons has apparently gone to Andretti, I believe.
Yes, Andretti. Yeah.
Which is another interesting move. So you've got all of this talent that's sort of lining up at a team that can't get a spot on the Formula One grid yet. Yeah. But I'm sure they're going to get there because. If anything else, I mean, Liberty Media, as we said last week, the Liberty Media have got to be very careful about this antitrust thing in the US. They do take that stuff very, very seriously in the United States, and Liberty Media being an American company, they can't sort of say, oh, it's got nothing to do with us. They will.
No, they're obligated to respond and yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to have to be very careful. They're going to have especially. We have very good reasons to keep Andretti out, especially when you've got the might of General Motors behind them. I mean, that will certainly help as well. So, I think I wouldn't surprise me at all if 2026 we don't see that Andretti Cadillac on the grid.
Oh,
but anyway, what's that, Mark?
I wanted to see it.
Oh, I think we all do. I mean, something new would be great. And I mean, the bizarre thing is they've spent so long saying, "Oh, we need more of an American presence in Formula One, and we need an American driver, we need an American car. Wouldn't it be good if?" And suddenly they've got sort of the biggest name in American motorsport, and the biggest name in American automotive engineering in General Motors putting up their hand and saying, we want to play, and they're going, no, not you.
Now, see, we've already got our American quotient in, and they're good because they sit at the back. They don't trouble the front running teams all that much. They help
Although,
Ferrari make more money with their engine deal, and that's absolutely perfect.
although
Yeah.
that American person that doesn't cause any trouble might be out because apparently Valtteri Bottas is looking very close to signing a deal with Williams.
Yeah,
I
that'd
thought
be
that was over the
interesting.
line, actually.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting that there. I mean, well, he's got to find somewhere to drive, and I mean, it was either that or come over here and race supercars, probably. So I think between the two options, he's probably a lot happier and a lot more comfortable over there racing for Williams than he is running around in supercars over here, and safer from Barry Ryan. So so there you go. That'd be a good one to see. That'd be 10 rounds of boxing. Valtteri Bottas and Barry Ryan. Love that.
I know where most of people's money is going to be there.
There we go.
I'm trying really hard not to nominate some other pugilists.
Yeah. But we got Williams Alpine not starring Hassar, but sometimes getting put. That's the other fight. I mean, we saw.
Hulkenberg's gone, so there's another seat.
Yeah, we've got also Daniel Ricciardo once again. Didn't set the world on fire. He was
Well,
up there.
then,
He's certainly not on the same pace. It seems pretty obvious now. He's not on the same pace as his teammate. Even
well, they're both out. They're both out of the Red Bull drive.
This time they both slipped out of the points.
And did you see that Perez has got him? Perez and Red Bull are negotiating a deal, so they've put a deal on the table for Perez for 1 year, and Perez says, thanks, but no thanks, I want 2, and so they've rejected that back again, so there's a bit of to and fro going on.
Yeah, well, there's going to be no shortage of people who want to line up for that Red Bull seat. It's still interesting to see. I mean, it's I'm a big fan of Daniel. I mean, he's great for Formula One and all the rest of it, but it is starting to become. There's always there's too many excuses now. I mean, after qualifying and practice, it was like, we couldn't get any more out of the car. This was wrong and that was wrong. And I think it's getting to the stage now where you've got to say, no, actually, Daniel, it might just be you. You might have just. There's not much in it, but I mean, in the world of Formula One, I mean, it really does come down to, into tenths of seconds. And unfortunately, at the moment, even though he did really well in the sprint race at Miami, I mean, he's clearly not at the same level as Yuki is, and you've got Liam Lawson just sitting twiddling his thumbs, doing nothing, and surely they've got to find a spot for Lawson at some stage.
Making strangling motions behind Daniel.
And certainly if he jumps them both and gets a seat after Perez, if the Perez deal all goes to the frustration and Sergio goes elsewhere, you never know. Let's see what Sainz does. Everyone's got to wait for Sainz to jump as well too. So if Sainz doesn't go to Mercedes, who takes that spot?
It's interesting.
Well, Perez.
And that's interesting. That's interesting too, because Carlos Senior has swapped from Audi to Ford for the Dakar, and Red Bull's going to Ford. So that's an interesting.
The change.
Yeah, so that could be. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I mean, Carlos Senior is going to run as you say, for the Dakar. He's going to run with Ford instead of Audi. So and Red Bull are tied up with that. So it'll be interesting.
Is Carlos Jr. really that connected to the fortunes of his famous father?
Who knows?
And certainly,
Carlos Senior moves.
I wouldn't have
they're
thought
not-
it was the
the two are
highest
not
priority, but
contractually linked.
I don't think they're not contractually linked. But I imagine I don't know whether Carlos Senior is basically doing the management for his son, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't. So it might be a case that like that move could be foreshadowing something. I mean, it may have absolutely nothing to do with anything, but it's interesting.
The word was that that's why Audi wanted him, Carlos Jr., because Carlos Sainz had that connection with Audi in the Dakars.
Yeah, I mean, and Audi have got that sort of that rich history of being in the sport in various forms, and I think it does mean something to them from a corporate standpoint to be able to have that family connection. So, and of course, you've got the German. I mean, that's why Hulkenberg's come across. They definitely wanted and felt they had to have a German driver, and now they probably want sort of another high profile driver, somebody who's and somebody who's got a family connection to the mark would probably go down well. But I'm sure it's not a major concern of Carlos Jr. that. In terms of he'll go where he gets the best deal, and I'm sure if the Mercedes drive did become available, he'd be very popular. Of course, he's going to bring some. You'd think he'd be bringing some money with him as well if necessary, but probably at the level that he's racing at, it's going to be a top team. I mean, he's not likely to join Valtteri at Williams or to move to Haas or something like that, is he?
No.
Yeah, we'll just have to see where the dominoes fall, I suppose. A lot of it comes down to Sergio and Carlos, I suppose, and it comes down to it.
Yep. But anyway, so coming up this weekend, the Monaco Grand Prix, huge weekend. Of course, this is the big weekend in May, because obviously once the cars cross the finish line at Monaco, we wait about sort of an hour or so, and they take the green flag at the Brickyard for the Indianapolis 500, and there's a couple of familiar names and familiar faces on the front of the grid.
I thought you were going to say for a second. Thought you were going to say a second for Brett. All the parties starting the yachts out the back there for a second, but no, that's all right.
That's true, and they'll be watching, and I imagine they'll be watching the Indianapolis 500.
Yep.
Where
plastic on the back of their boats and not watching the Indy 500, but that's just me.
Yeah,
They'll be okay. They'll be watching a blurred vision of the 500.
But congratulations to Scotty Mack for a fabulous pole. It was just fantastic. And then he's just in front of Will Power, so you've got an Antipodean 1 and 2 with the New Zealander on front position. I noticed that they did try and claim some of the mainstream media I heard on radio as I was driving around. It's an all Australian front row at what they call the Indianapolis 500 Grand Prix coming up next week.
They're going to get us in trouble.
And Joseph Newgarden's an Australian now too?
Well, yeah, apparently they I don't think they're sort of don't think they were
Can't
fully aware of the three of the 3x3 grid, but certainly Penske,
Wow.
certainly the people that have been suspended from the captain's team haven't done much to slow them down at all. But just a fabulous run by both Will and by Scotty. And my only problem is, and I say this every year, that the Indy 500 is still the race that frightens me the most. It's always the one that I know that the safety has been improved so much over the years, but it's still a terrifyingly fast race. And when you have crashes there, they're not small crashes.
They go over the fence. Yep.
Well, hopefully not anymore. I mean, that's one of the part of the things that they've improved. But I always sort of like, if I'm not able to watch it or listen to it live, I always used to wake up of a morning. It used to be a thing that I'd wake up on Monday morning and I think, oh, dear, I hope everything went well at Indy last night. And then you tune in and it's like, like a big crash at Indianapolis. And it's like, oh, no.
What time does it start? AEST time, Brett?
3 o'clock, doesn't it?
Something like that. Yeah, I think the coverage starts at about 2 a.m. and I think the race starts at about 3.
Right.
I'll have to book my Monday off when I get to work tomorrow.
Well, we'll be trying to get some Z's back, pushing out some Z's from Winton, won't we?
Yes, well, we'll be up at Winton. That's at the other end of the spectrum. It's the first time we've been up to Winton for the historics, and as I said at the start of the show, we got Abby and Jacob Wingett joining us on the show tomorrow night to talk about Historic Winton. That's
pretty good first timer, Jacob. He went well, didn't he?
Yeah, they're both very good. They're both very good, very comfortable in front of the camera. That's the thing. I mean, we've said it before. The kids today are just so much more comfortable in front of the camera than when we started. I remember when we started the program, back in the late '90s. Virtually every driver that you had on. I mean, even at the supercar level, I'm really nervous. I'm really, I've never been on television before. I'm really, I don't know what to say, and I'm going to be. None of them say that now. They just walk in and it's just like, just like coming in off the street and sitting down for a meal at the local pub. I mean, they just, it's like not a problem.
There's a little bit of unreserved trust there. Poor buggers. I don't know what they're getting in for when Brett and I, but we go easy on them. We do, but a lot of them just go, well, "What are you going to talk about?" And Brett and I go, "We haven't prepared anything anyway." So I just treat it like a convo. But yeah, a lot of them are, they're just a little bit nervous, but we warm them up almost immediately, and they just take a duck to it like water, don't they?
Yeah, so that's on tomorrow night. So they talk about that, and the good thing, as I said about the historic Winton, is the fact that it's cars and bikes. You got the two running together, and that really makes. I mean, and for us, I mean, as I've said before, for somebody who'll be sort of like waving, basically waving this thing around for there. By the way, as you can see, Doc, it's been repaired.
Secure.
So hopefully
we know the temperature, but we check the wind conditions for exactly.
Yeah, that's it. And now that I've moved,
and the heat.
Well, actually, it's going to be a really beautiful. It's going to be freezing morning. I mean, literally freezing mornings. I mean,
that was this morning. It was 5 or less this morning in most.
Well,
places.
It was the forecast for Saturday and Sunday up there is sort of 0 in the morning. And in fact -1 on Sunday. But the top temperature for Sunday is going to be 19 degrees.
Yeah, because it's past the divide. So
it's
like our sunscreen.
It'll be a beautiful day. It'll be those nice clear sort of early winter, late autumn blue skies that you get up there, and be great for photos, great for filming, and we'll have action from that next week on the final edition of In Pit Lane for this particular series on Channel 31, and we'll also have an extended coverage coming up on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. It is being live streamed, but I believe, unfortunately, it is a pay for play. I think if you want to have a look at it, it's going to cost you some money. Although it's fairly reasonable. I think it's about $8.
Okay, here we go. Here is the latest on the forecast. I'm going to do my best, Jane Bunn here. Friday, it is free practice. I'm not sure if it's free entry. By the way, just before I get completely into the weather, 17 and under is for free for kids up there. So if you are thinking about taking the fam along, grab the kids and bundle them into the VW van or whatever your historic car as well too, and enjoy it up there, because if they're accompanied by an adult, they are for free, so they can't wander in on their own. Unfortunately, nice try. And if you want to have yourself a couple of smackaroonies, a cup of coffee, or a half a Subway roll, you can get the tickets at I think, what was it, Tickety Boo. They are $5 cheaper per ticket on an adult if you buy the 5 online. So you can just buy them online, print them out, and there you go. So quickly heading back to the forecast. Friday 16, an overnight low of 4 going into it. So yeah, as Brett said, a little bit cool on the cucumber. Saturday 17 and 3 degrees as well too on the zucchini. And Sunday 17 and Sunday morning a low of 2. So up at Benalla, that'll freeze the nuts off a tractor or the pricks off a barbed wire fence.
Yeah, that's going to be a cold start for us on Sunday up at Wang, and hopefully the heating in in our accommodation that we've arranged for the weekend. And
you say a cold start for your wang, Brett?
Yeah, it's always a cold start. But anyway,
so long as it doesn't snap off, that's all right.
Snap-on tools are coming very handy at Historic Winton. There's a few repairs on the go that have to be done there. You're right, right there, Mark. So yeah, looking forward to a big Historic Winton weekend, and with over 400 entries. I didn't get to mention last night on our when we were taping the show. As I said, Brett said, big show tomorrow night, but there's lots of actually different events on throughout the weekend, including the Cortina Challenge. Brett was lamenting and reminiscing with daydream cloud above his head, saying, I wish I still had my Cortina and I could, if I couldn't drive it myself, let someone else give it a bash around. But there's Cortina Challenges, and there's different other wonderful events. So if you haven't done Historic Winton before, but you've done things down here in Melbourne like Phillip Island, Sandown, go up there and experience something new. You're going to be just as thrilled.
It's a very different sort of historic meeting. It's totally different from the VHRR stuff, and the bikes make it that way. But also the regularities, and also they have the sort of the display laps, just the parade laps, and you get all sorts of weird and wonderful things running around there. So yeah, head up there. But if you can't get up there, it is on Blendline for $8. It's unfortunate. Unfortunately, I can sort of say now unfortunately, through absolutely nothing, no reason for us, we were involved originally in some live streaming that was going to happen there, and unfortunately, through absolutely no fault of our own, and getting sort of shafted again, we that sort of disappeared. That sort of disappeared, unfortunately, which was...
So the era of the cars I saw on their flyer was between 1920 and around the 1980s. So it's a fair swagger of decades there.
That's the thing. They always have the older car, and also because it's on the short circuit there, although the stuff they sent out for the media, they said that they were using the long circuit. If they are, that'd be the first time, because they usually do use the short circuit. And the short circuit is great. Is great for those sort of cars. It's also great for the smaller cars, say the touring cars. You've got the minis and the escorts and all those sorts of cars are much more competitive, of course, and rather than the and the Cortinas, and there is going to be a lot of Cortinas. So
Corties will be coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah,
Corties and Scotties.
Yeah, so that's it. But as Neckers are saying, yeah, they can have lots of short, sharp races, and they do. And they've got the bikes out there as well. Sidecars, the outfits will be out there.
Abby was talking about that off the record last night. Abby was having a chat, and she said she's.
So you're now going to put it on the record on her behalf?
Yeah, on the record. It's now no longer off the record.
Yes.
Well, she was talking a lot about the sidecars before we went on the show, and said she was looking at, and I was talking about how the sidecars get out the Broadford Motorcycle Complex, and I've been out there quite recently. I did back at Easter, and they were, and she's like me, she's just amazed. She says they come back, and you can see they've just absolutely great. They've almost done a set of letters just out there on their elbows and knees on the sidecars, and he said, and they take the helmet off. She said that they look like they're 80 years of age, and they're still going for it.
Yeah, it's a great meeting, so head up there and take that. Speaking of which, I'll also point out tomorrow night on the program, we have the launch of motors and masterpieces. You'll see this tomorrow night, and as we point out, this is the replacement for Motorclassica. Motorclassica was a huge event in Melbourne. Well, we were there at the beginning of it. We saw how Paul and the team sort of, developed that thing. It got bigger and bigger. Each year we went back, it just got, larger and larger, and it became just a really major event. And then unfortunately Paul left just before sort of the COVID situation, and some new people took over right in time when COVID hit, and pretty much that was the end of Motorclassica. They ran it last in 2022, but it was a bit of a shadow of its former self. Well, now a lot of the original people who were working with Paul Mason behind the scenes, including sort of the money man who was sort of putting up all the money and whose real idea it was, they've all got together, and they're going to run this thing called Motors and Masterpieces. which you'll see it was launched this time last week. If you were watching last week, you might have seen, I did some live streaming from that event on the Facebook page. And it's really from the Fox Museum. It's a really, really great event. It's they've heavily based it on Retromobile, which is the big biannual event that happens in Paris in late January, early February, every couple of years, and people come from all over the world. And it's a big sort of, as they sort of say, that the fact that they're going to be at the showgrounds gives them a lot more space, and it's not going to be sort of one car. It's going to be a whole bunch of car and bike shows, all with different themes. It's going to be an absolutely huge event. They've got
California Dreaming, I think.
Everything's going to have themes.
Asian was Japan Lights. There you go.
So you're going to have these sort of these little areas, and within those areas they'll have food vans and bars and performances and all sorts of things that fit in with that event. And unfortunately, that is going to be the same weekend as Island Magic.
And also, Brett, not only they did the Nations theme, they also said they're going to have an Australian motorsport area as well too. Remember?
Yeah, there is a motorsport area that they're putting together now, and I imagine our mate Charles Rogers is probably will be heavily involved in that. So we will see sort of some great motorsport history there. The other problem is apart from Island Magic, that's also the traditional weekend of the Geelong Sprints, or the Geelong Speed Trials, and that could be a big problem in terms of those high performance and a lot of those classic cars that we'd normally see down at Geelong. They're going to have to make a decision now. Do they go down and compete at Geelong, or do they do motors and masterpieces? So that might be a bit of a problem.
And for spectators, you've got to divvy up your days.
That's the problem we've got now all the time, isn't it?
Exactly.
Paul saying, after having a sidecar crash at my feet, I tend not to hang around for those races. I mean, when they go, I mean, there's people flying everywhere. It's pretty.
Hopefully those people stay in one piece, flying everywhere too.
But as Paul says, at Winton, 48 races, with races starting at a reasonable time, 11:48 on 11:45 on Saturday.
Don't blink.
Yeah, so we'll be up there and getting some footage. And as I said, a special edition. Next week is our final show in the studio. It won't be the last episode of the last thing we do on In Pit Lane. It's not the end of the show at this stage. We are scheduled to come back in September as per usual. But once again, it really does depend on the sponsorship situation. The studio is available. We also need a crew. There are huge demands on our crew in at RMI TV. We've got a lot of productions happening at the moment, and unfortunately, I know that we are going to lose some of our very experienced crew to a new project that's
going on to bigger and better things. Their own little.
I don't know about bigger and better things. Probably. Who knows? Perhaps smaller and better things, or even just other things.
We got to let the kids fly away sometimes.
That's it. They got to leave the home at some. They got to leave the nest at some stage, and we're going to miss quite a few of them. So we've got to try and get all those people back. But the main thing is, of course, with sponsorship. In terms of, we've been very lucky to have Roy and the team from Online Invent. And I'm assuming Roy hasn't joined us. I haven't seen him so far. I don't know if you're out there. Virtual R, but he was certainly going up to Winton as well. I think he was heading up there, so he'll have stuff on the Motorsport Archives.
I do have
YouTube channel.
But if you're thinking about wrapping up, we'll just have a little bit of MotoGP stuff as well too.
Yeah, let's get that out. Let's get that out of the way. We did talk about while you were while you were gone. We did talk about the new regulations. That was
in 2027. So
in 22. But before you do that, Doc, we do need to do something. We do need to do this. He breaks it down like no other. God's got the rhythm. He's a lyrical brother from Marquez to Rossi. He knows all their tricks. Stats he delivers. Minds in the mix. Fast and there you go. Yes, and now it's time for Doc's MotoGP wrap-up.
Where the hell did that come from?
Isn't artificial intelligence wonderful?
Oh, wowzers. What an intro. I was going to say, that's just blown me away. I'm in awe now. I'll just have to, just string something together. Quickly about those regulations, though. Good point, Brett. They are in 2027. So not only is Formula One the top tier in four wheels, but Brett refers to 4 and 2 a lot. Well, they're getting the 2027 regs. There was some speculation that if they drop the CCs from 1,000 to 850, that those good old world superbikes, which are just basically a slight upgrade, a few brakes and a few other suspension changes that they run around the world with, might be in fact quicker than the MotoGP prototypes. So there's been a little bit of Dorna's been a little bit concerned, and they said because of that, there's going to be some new regulations brought into world superbikes now too to ensure that they don't go any faster. So just a quick recap on that. There's about 7 or 8 circuits around the world that they both compete at, like Phillip Island down here in Melbourne. At the bottom of Melbourne here, a suburb of Melbourne, we like to call it. They're about, across all the circuits around the world, they're about half a second to 3/4 of a second on a full lap behind the MotoGP bike. So that's not...
They could actually qualify on a MotoGP grid as they are now.
Yeah, they could, because they'd be within the regulations of the outside the cut-off time. So just, basically, on that note, about half to 3/4 that second, they'll go about. So anyway, that'll all get sorted out, and conditions could be, sometimes it's wet, sometimes the tires are a bit more sticky, but anyway. Catalunya is on this weekend, same time as Formula One, so just try and find some time between Winton and Formula One, and MotoGP's on as well too. Jorge Martin is hitting his sweet spot. He said he has never ridden better all year than he did on the Le Mans on the weekend just gone. He finally reckons he's got rid of his chatter and his vibration around the bike, and especially the front end. That he reckons because he won both races on the weekend at Le Mans, and he said it was just a walk in the park for him. Not competitively, but he said the feel of the bike was just so much better. So he's got a 38-point lead into the season so far. They head to, as I said, Barcelona. Even if he was beaten all weekend, he would still be in front. So he's got a little bit of a buffer going there at the moment. Joe Mir has come out this week as well, though, too, and said he is bruised and battered and sore and is close to having enough again. So last year, after a lot of crashes on his first year at Honda, he is also feeling the heat as well, though, too, from the rigours of the bike, and it's hurting a lot. So the poor fellow, he's the 2020 MotoGP champion, and he said he thought about retiring last year when he was getting but he said in that saying that he's still riding it now. He's still putting himself through it. And I'm not Honda bashing right now, but Luca Marini is his teammate, and Luca hasn't even scored a point all year as well, though, too. And Joanne has just made it onto the finishing list as well, though, too. There's a lot of speculation as well, though, too. It's rife at the moment as well, too, because at the end of the month, Ducati make a decision on who gets the second factory team. So obviously the first one's already signed, sealed, and delivered, and the world champion from the last couple of years will have that seat. But Ania Bastianini is a little bit under threat at the moment. So the speculation will either be Martin or Marquez. According to Mr. Petrucci, who's obviously was still racing MotoGP last year, is now retired from that and moved on. He says Marquez is the favourite, is from his sources. So Petrucci does a little bit of social media type stuff now. But Joanne Mir, going back to it, if he does leave Honda as well, though, too, sorry, flipping a bit, his old mate Suzuki runs the show at Trackhouse, so he might flip across to that. And a couple of other bits and pieces of news as well, though, too. Not quite bike-related, but dock-related. Frank Lowndes did some work on one of my vehicles back in the early 90s, and our good friends at Speed Cafe have got a good article this week on Frank Lowndes and a lot about his career. I know there's a book been done and all that sort of stuff in the past, but yeah, it's a little bit of stuff. And I think Craig's added to it and added a lot of photos from his own personal collection. So it's not clickbait. Speed Cafe do have some great articles other than just your normal commercialism type stuff. Jump on and have a look at that article for Frank Lowndes on Speed Cafe for this week. That's it. Other than I think Brett's been devoid of the ticker tonight because he's been had appointments galore today and been a very, very busy beaver. So I did happen to see that Adrian Dietz and Tony D'Alberto are racing a Huracan GT3 Evo 2 that's just been announced today over at the Bend at the end of the month as well too. That's it.
And also at the Bend in sports sedans, our mate Brad Sheriff will be bringing his new sports sedan, his Unison sports sedan over from Tasmania, and he'll be running there. And also Tom Randall, my good friend of the show. Tommy is going to race, going to bring the Saab out of Mothballs, and he'll be racing at the Bend as well. Would really like to get over for that meeting. I don't know whether I really can't figure out a way of doing it financially at the moment, but it's looking like a really, really good meeting over there as well. Also, I'm just on the bike thing. I'll give you a bit of bike news, a bit of gossip that is going around at the moment, and that is very strong rumours. You might have seen just recently, as you would know, that one Valentino Rossi is running with Team WRT with BMW in various GT3 races and doing so very successfully. Latest rumor is one of the byproducts of the new regulations, and you mentioned that they were getting very close in some respects to the to world superbike regulations. One of the rumours that is growing at the moment is that as a result of these new regulations, there will be a manufacturer coming into MotoGP, and that will be BMW, and that BMW bike will be run by V46 by Valentino Rossi's team. That's the rumor. That's just a rumor. But it's a fairly well sourced one going around in Europe at the moment. So yes, that's all coming up. Let's just I don't know whether we sort of got to it. Was the supercars we sort of haven't. We'll just very quickly go there. The Fords. The Fords that were totally out of it. They've had their parity change, and my word, hasn't it worked well? Chaz Mostert winning both races, but unfortunately for Chaz, he had a penalty, and that put him back. That gave Cam Waters the win in race 2, but they certainly did well. Brody Kostecki did really came back to a bit of form in qualifying and was looking a lot better this week. But what's come out afterwards, of course, is some very worrying news. If you haven't heard or you haven't read it, that was the behaviour of Barry Ryan, or the alleged. We'll have to use that word again. The alleged behaviour of Barry Ryan from the Erebus team in regard to experienced journalist Andrew Van Leeuwen from Speed Cafe. According to Andrew on his podcast, full credit to the Noise. He said that he was basically invited at the end of the day back to the garage by Barry to the team huddle. Just to come in, and he said that when he was there, he was basically sort of humiliated and abused by Barry in front of the team. And if what he is saying is true, that sort of thing happens all the time in supercars. It's one of the reasons I'm really glad to be out of it. Just in case you're unaware, the people involved in supercars, apart from some of the drivers, are really nice people in them. There's lots of lovely people in supercars. There's also a lot of absolute miserable bastards who take themselves and what they do way too seriously, and it's not a fun place to be at times in the media centre at a supercar race. So you do cop that sort of shit. I've had it myself, but not to the point where it's done publicly, where it's sort of a person is ambushed like that. And if that is the case, supercars really do need to do something about it, because that's just not good enough behaviour. And I would also say, if what Andrew said about the situation involving Erebus's PR person, their communications manager, is true as well, then she needs a new job, quite frankly, because that was absolutely This is one thing that the supercars, I'm going to go on the rant now. So this is something that PR people in supercars do not understand, and that is that their role is to make a smooth transition between the team and the public via the media. And if you're going to have these toxic relationships with the media, which quite a few of them do in at supercars, then that's why you're not getting the column inches in the old-fashioned method of saying it. That's why you're not getting the exposure that you should do. And that's simply because their PR people are just not doing their job.
And the public backlash.
The public are angry about it. You get people on both sides talking nonsense and like, he should have done this, he should have done that. And he should have just said nothing at all. And as Andrew said, if it had been just a discussion between he and Barry, just a one-on-one discussion, which, as I said, we've all had them in with the supercar people.
Yep.
As I said, I told the story a few times with one person. I won't name names, but an absolute tear down. A senior supercar official's tearing strips off a journalist. And as I said to him after it was over, I said, if you talk to me like that, I'd throw you through this window. And he went, yeah, that's why I wouldn't talk to you like that. But they were long times ago. So,
yeah, and some people, you know what? Some people don't get their facts right sometimes and go off the deep end and absolutely vilify other people or groups of people. And, it's not always true either as well, though, too, because they just snap for the wrong. Yeah. Anyway, but being put on the being pulled into a public environment and put on the spot and then under false pretenses is absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. And I mean, to say, to be given a lecture, I mean, as I said, when your PR person comes up and starts a sentence with, as a journalist, let me tell you, no, I mean, I won't get into the whole thing about journalism. When I did my journalism course, we always there are two sides of the story. There is the journalist side and there is the PR side. And the PR, it's like the mongoose and the snake. I mean, the PR people, our job as journalists is basically to decode and deconstruct what the PR people are saying and find out the truth behind what is going on. Because obviously the PR person's job is to make the best the best sort of story and put the best spin on things for the team and for the driver and all the rest of it. And one of the ways that you do that is by having good relationships with journalists, and having worked in that side of things with some of the best PR people in Australia in the world of film and television and the theatre. I know how hard they worked behind the scenes to make the job of journalists easier and to maintain those good relationships. Nobody does that in Australia. They do it in NASCAR. They do it in IndyCar. They do it in the NHRA. They even do it in Formula One. Nobody in Australia does it to the same extent, and they're not proactive. They sit there. As one PR person said to me years ago, he said, it's the easiest gig in town. You throw out 3 press releases a week. You send one to Auto Action, you send one to Speed Cafe, and you send one to Fox. He said, and there's your job done. He said, and they pay us $180,000 a year for that. So if you're going to have that sort of attitude, We've got just Team 18 losing a few people. Perk had dumped on W. Yes, well, Nick did certainly.
After his win at
So that was interesting. Once again, that was another story that really wasn't followed up, and that's journalists not doing their job. That was a story that just wasn't followed up to the same extent. I mean, it was a thinly veiled, strong attack. That he was always going to give it up because of the environment in it, Walkinshaw. It would be interesting to know why.
He touched on the fact that he wasn't treated as an equal, and he was nothing against Chaz because he has a good friendship with Chaz. But he said, I always was playing second fiddle and second rung, and I just had to. And there's always sometimes an A and a B driver or a 1 and a 2, but. Supercars apparently, and it's never been said when they're out there that they're on equal footing and they're allowed to race as long as they don't take each other out. But Nick certainly touched on the fact that I wasn't given the same feeling that the same time, sometimes the same equipment or same respect as what some of the
And
other
you don't
members.
know how accurate that is as well. I mean, because you hear that from sort of, so-called number two drivers all the time. I'm not being given the same opportunities. I'm not being given the same equipment. Sometimes they are. When you talk to the people behind the scenes, they go, yes, they are. They're being given exactly the same equipment, exactly the same opportunities. The bottom line is they're just not as good. And I'm sorry, I know Nick's a lovely guy and all the rest of it, but he's not Chaz Mostert. Chaz is a genuine. Chaz is in the Shane Van Gisbergen league. I mean,
when he can jump in a GT3 car and run around Bathurst, it goes a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I mean, the guys BMW would have had him as a factory driver like that if he'd have been prepared to leave supercars. If he wanted an international career, he could have just jumped into a GT3 car and a GT3 career in no time at all. So but anyway, so he's a really good driver. But it's good to see that. But now we've got another sort of gap until they get up to Hidden Valley. So thankfully it's not as long, but they've got to do something about this bloody calendar. The interesting thing is apparently also Newcastle is back on may well be back on the agenda because there's some elections coming up and a lot of the surprise, it's like you don't know what you've got until it's gone. A lot of the people who were jumping up and down in Newcastle and saying, get rid of this thing, we don't want it here. And now Turkey is turning around and going, well,
we don't want roundabouts, we don't want...
Yeah, we don't want roundabouts, and we don't want... And by gee, it brought in a lot of money into the area, and
now the votes
really
swing the other way.
This year, and
now the votes swing the other way. All the other people say, no, yes we do.
Well, including one of the people who's a contender for mayor in the place who was vehemently opposed to the race is now saying, no, actually, I mean, we need to mitigate the disruption, but overall, I think it was a very good thing.
Yeah, I've got to give them what the people want.
Yeah, so that's been sort of considered as an opening round. The Perth street race. The other thing about Wanneroo on the weekend, the crowd was really, really disappointing. If you have a look, and it wasn't just I was looking thinking, gee, it doesn't look like a really good crowd. That was one of the things Andrew Van Leeuwen said on his podcast that the crowd was really, really disappointing, and a lot of the people over there are just saying. It's a bit like the Phillip Island scenario. The place is too hard to get to. It's too hard to get out of. The facilities aren't good in terms of and so they are pushing for a street race. It's been spoken around, possibly going around the Optus in the vicinity of Optus Stadium. There's also talk about down on the foreshore at Fremantle, and possibly that's another alternative to start the year. Although I'd think that supercars would probably not want to start the year off in Western Australia because it is literally as far away from anywhere as you can get. And in terms of having that really big sort of, big start to the year, I think they would preferably want that on the East Coast and in one of the major cities.
Yeah, Melbourne or Sydney.
Melbourne, Sydney or the Gold.
Right,
I mean, I don't know. Could they? Yeah, so they're not going to want it. They're not going to want it at a racetrack. They don't want. They want a big street event. That's what they want. They want a big road race. They want that in the heart of the city. They're obviously not going to get that in Melbourne. They're probably not going to get it in Sydney. Although it's who knows? They could revive that idea again, but I would doubt it. I mean, well, Mark, you'd know better. I mean, could they possibly move? Could they move the Gold Coast to that time of the year?
Well, the Gold Coast event when it first began was an early year event. It was April roughly. So it's
When was it? When did they do it with Indy? What month was that? When there was Indy / Gold Coast?
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah,
October, November, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, it's settled there, but certainly earlier on, it was an early year event.
It was the first or second round of the Indy cars. That's right.
Opening
Yeah,
round, yeah.
because I went up. I went up to. I've still got bloody shirts in plastic I haven't worn from bloody Indy car I bought at the time. Yeah.
Well, don't wear them now. They're probably going to be collector's items.
Oh, they're still in plastic in my wardrobe. I never got around to wearing them. So
I've still got my T-shirt from the aborted A1 Grand Prix event that never happened. there.
Yeah,
I've
that's
got
never
the-
going to be a collector's item, though.
Yeah, probably no, probably not. Well, I got it from an op shop. So there you go.
Yeah.
This is one thing that's been said.
1991. Actually, it went longer than we thought it went. It went from 1991 to 2008.
Yeah.
Oh.
I went a couple of times.
Yeah, it's full. Yeah, 3 hour time difference. Yeah, I mean I suppose that's the thing for Perth is that it is potentially a good time slot for television in the eastern states, because they could run it late into the evening and be in prime time. So that would be the opportunity there, I suppose. So that's a good thing. That's why it was so popular. They had the WWE were there with their elimination chamber thing, and that was part of the appeal. When they said, why Perth? They said, well, one, Perth, the Western Australian government gave them a shitload of money. And number two was it worked into being a really convenient time zone for just about everybody in terms of when they ran it. So anyway, that's all coming up. But as I said, really, really busy times ahead. As I said, be watching tomorrow night, Channel 31 for our penultimate edition of In Pit Lane for this season. As I said, there will be stuff happening. We will have a full course yellow will continue. Perhaps not every week, but we'll certainly be doing a bit of a warning now, perhaps particularly to Mark, that we will have our traditional Le Mans preview. Which will be coming up, because that's the big thing. As people know, for me, that's my Christmas every year. Basically, as the Le Mans week hits, I go into French time, and
We'll have to get our baguettes and some
our baguettes and our rillettes and
our full course yellow.
tartiflette and croque madames and all the rest of it. So yes, that's all part of it, and of course. And our crêpe de grand marnier as well,
and some croissants as well too.
Yeah,
and
so
for the first time in a long time, we've got a guy in the race who could win it.
Yes, that's good. The few Aussies taking part, not as many as would like to, because once again, I mean that's the problem. It's the same weekend yet again as Hidden Valley. So there's a lot of the supercar guys who perhaps might have got a gig and who would have liked a gig, including Chaz Mostert, who unfortunately aren't going to get there. And I know that Craig Lowndes, we've talked about this with him on the show, like on a number of occasions. Lowndes really wants to get there, and probably now he's probably more likely to get to the Classic. The Classic is on this year as well. Oh no, it's next year actually. Next year for the Classic. Yeah. So I'm really, I don't know. I'm really sort of hoping. I haven't done the Classic, and every time I've been to Le Mans, just everybody says you must come back for the Classic. The Classic is amazing. Come back for the Classic. Never had the money to do it because you can't sort of do both. So who knows? Perhaps one day before I die, that's probably the bucket list. One of the big there's two bucket list things: NHRA drag racing somewhere, probably at Sonoma, and Le Mans Classic. So there you go. Okay, Mark's saying looking forward to the Winton Historic. Yeah, if you see us up there, Mark, we'll be up there. Doc, you've got some footy commitments on Saturday.
So we're all, there's the In Pit Lane crew family will be up there. We're all doing about a day and a half, so we'll be up there. Say hi to us just after lunch on Saturday, and if you're looking for me, I'll be hiding underneath scrambling through the bikes and getting a good gander at those, getting a good look at the bikes, because as Brett said, there'll be probably a plethora of stuff that we don't usually see down in Melbourne, or you don't go into state for. So,
and like I said, we'll be out there. We'll have a couple of cameras. We'll have a couple of cameras out there, getting stuff both on the track and off the track behind the scenes. Blendline will be covering the races. It is a pay for play, $8, so it's a reasonable amount. Some of these pay for view things, they charge stupid amounts of money, whereas $8 is quite reasonable.
2 cups of coffee.
Yeah,
or if it's 7-Eleven, it's $4.
Yeah. So
4 cups.
Yeah. And yes, and also that's New South Wales State round, including the National Formula Fords, and that I believe that is not pay-per-view. That's on Blendline as well, but I think that is free as per usual. So if you're not going, you want to watch a bit of local motorsport, you can watch that as well. We're still putting together some stuff for later on in the year. I hope. And as I said, we're just hoping really to be able to come back in September. Everything's booked, everything's ready. Channel 31 wanted us to come. In fact, they scheduled us for this upcoming season, which starts at the end of next week. They actually had scheduled us in, unbeknownst to me, until I had to point out that we desperately need a break, and two, we just don't have the money to basically do 36 shows.
So if you do see In Pit Lane scheduled from the following week onwards after we start our holidays, you'll be watching a rerun of Fletch anyway.
You'll be watching something, but it won't be us. If you want to watch us, please support us on the YouTube channel. We're only 46. We're only 46 subscribers away from hitting 3,000 subscribers. So come on. I mean, it costs you nothing. All you got to do is click the thing. Click the subscribe. Click the subscribe button. Click the notification bell, and cost you nothing. And then whenever we do something, including live stuff as well, we won't be doing anything live from Winton because of the fact that it is being live streamed. So we're obviously not going to be doing anything. But there will be some live stuff coming up. And also, while we've got a break, one of the things we can do with the break we can't do in the normal series is it gives us more time to get out to workshops and to other places, have a good look at some cars, and do some more detailed stuff, because we don't have the pressure of that deadline every week. It doesn't matter if it takes me 1 or 2 or 3 weeks to edit and put the bloody thing together. Whereas when you got the show every week, it really is a really fast turnaround, and you don't have time to breathe. So anyway, we'll see you up at Winton. We'll see you on In Pit Lane tomorrow night, and of course next week as well.
We should probably do a couple of. We might do a couple, even though we can't do anything live, Brett. We still could do a couple of posts up there while we're up there, a couple of pics of us or something like that.
Well, I'm sure there'll be stuff on Instagram. There'll be stuff on Facebook.
Just got to work out how to use it. You said you're gonna research that one day.
I know how to use Instagram. The problem is there's a whole thing about like cross promote. Forget about it. We'll see you next week, everybody. Good night. See you later.
Have a great weekend if you're not at Winton.